Welcome, everyone. Today, we are tackling one of the most fundamental questions in Indian law: who is the state? It sounds simple, but it's actually a high stakes constitutional battlefield. Every time you claim a fundamental right, you are essentially pointing a finger at a violator. But who can you legally point that finger at? Today, we are demystifying Article 12 of the Indian Constitution, an exploration of boundaries, state action, and a paradox involving the judiciary itself. First, the basics. Unlike ordinary legal rights that exist between two individuals, like a contract, fundamental rights are guaranteed protections against the state. Think of Part 3 as a massive energy shield protecting the citizen from the arbitrary, laser beams of government power. The rule: to claim a constitutional violation under Article 32 or 226, you must first prove your violator is the state. The exceptions, take note, Articles 15, 2, 17, 23, 1, and 24 are unique. They actually allow you to hold private individuals accountable for things like untouchability or forced labor. Article 12 doesn't give a narrow definition, it uses the word includes, meaning this list is expansive, not exhaustive. It stands on four pillars: union government and parliament, state governments and legislatures, local authorities like municipalities and panchayats. Other authorities, this is where the real legal fighting happens. This fourth pillar is the battleground because it determines if corporations, societies, or agencies must respect your rights. In the early days, before 1954, the courts used a rule called ejus dem generis, meaning of a like nature. They thought other authorities only meant bodies doing sovereign things like the police or tax collectors, as seen in University of Madras versus Sentabai. The shift, in Ujjam Bai versus State of UP 1962, the Supreme Court shattered this rule. They said there is no common genus running through these bodies, you don't have to be a sovereign entity to be the state. The definition grew like a winding road. 1967, Rajasthan Electricity Board statutory bodies with powers conferred by law were included. 1975, Sukhdev Singh massive corporations like ONGC, LIC, and IFC were brought in. 1979, Airport Authority. This was the game changer. The court ruled that agencies or instrumentalities are the state, regardless of how they were incorporated. Key insight: the state cannot bypass your rights by outsourcing its jobs to corporations or societies. So, how do we know if a new body is the state? We use a statehood diagnostic checklist based on Pradeep Kumar Biswas 2002. We ask: is the entire share capital held by the government? Is there deep and pervasive state control? Is it a state-protected monopoly? Are the functions of public importance? The ultimate question: is the body financially, functionally, and administratively dominated by the government? Just because you get a grant doesn't make you the state. There is an exclusion zone. Insert rejected. Autonomous control over grants means it remains private. Chandra Mohan Khanna. ICRISAT, rejected. It's an international organization serving multiple countries. G. Bassi Reddy. BCCI, the famous one. Even though they represent India, they are a private society not financially or administratively dominated by the government. The rule: mere regulatory control is not enough. You need deep and pervasive domination. Here is the mind bender. The judiciary is the protector of your rights under Articles 32 and 226. But the paradox is, as an organ created by the Constitution with massive power to make rules, could a court violate your rights? If a judge infringes on your liberty, do they then become the state under Article 12? The court solved this with the dual persona doctrine. Judicial capacity: when a judge is adjudicating a dispute and issuing orders, they are not state. You cannot sue the court as a state for its judgment. Administrative capacity: when the court is hiring staff, managing buildings, or making infrastructure rules, it is state. It is only amenable to writ jurisdiction when acting administratively. In the Mirjikar case, the majority ruled that a court acting judicially cannot violate fundamental rights. A writ cannot be issued against a High Court's judicial order. The famous dissent, Justice Hidayatullah warned that excluding courts from the state could eventually allow them to make rules that violate citizens' rights unchecked. He wanted a stronger check on judicial power. So, if a judge makes a flawed order that violates natural justice, how do you fix it? Path A: filing a writ petition under Article 32 against the court itself, blocked by the Mirjikar precedent. Path B: invoke appellate or review mechanisms, ex debito justitiae. Under A.R. Antule vs. R.S. Nayak 1988, judicial errors are corrected internally through appeal, not by suing the court as a state entity. Fast forward to 2015. In Riju Prasad Sarma, the Supreme Court reaffirmed the dual persona doctrine. When a court acts administratively, hiring staff or making service rules, it acts as a state. In this capacity, it is completely vulnerable to writ jurisdiction and cannot perpetuate discrimination or violate constitutional equality. Let's summarize. Executive: always state? Yes. Writs? Yes. Legislature: always state? Yes. Writs? Yes, via judicial review. Judiciary: admin state? Yes. Writs? Yes. Judiciary: judicial state? No. Writs? No. How do we compare globally? The US view: under the 14th Amendment, judicial actions are explicitly covered, Virginia vs. Rives. The Part 4 paradox: in State of Kerala vs. N.M. Thomas, the Supreme Court held that courts are state under Part 4, directive principles. Yet, they magically step outside this definition under Part 3 while acting judicially. Where is Article 12 going? The NCRWC has recommended amending it to include any authority performing functions of a public nature. As the modern state moves from provider to regulator, no entity wielding public power should be left unchecked. Fundamental rights are the citizen's shield, and Article 12 ensures that shield stays strong. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and see you in the next lecture.